some big news. However, it applies to you, okay?
It may apply to you.
It may. So do your research outside of us. We do the groundwork. You take it and you do what you need with this information, okay?
Right.
We just the bone carrier here. Navient student loans, okay? Navient has reached a settlement with 39 states in which it will cancel $1.7 billion in private student loan debt. The settlement is the end of 6 separate lawsuits filed against the company that accused Navient of giving out loans to millions of borrowers who were unlikely to be able to repay them, as well as improperly recommending federal loan forbearance instead of relief options. So the company is also responsible for repaying $95 million in restitution for select student loan borrowers. So this is how you know if you qualify for the settlement. Number 1, you must have attended a for-profit school such as DeVry University, the Art Institutes, ITT Tech Institutes, and others. Now, everybody that was like, oh, you go to DeVry, ITT Tech, we should have took our ass because then it would have been canceled.
Yeah, I bet ICDC College is on that.
I bet ICDC College. I keep kissing the mic, Lord. Okay. Loans must have been dispersed between 2002 and 2014. And if that don't hit home.
Because right there's the cutoff, baby. Right there is the cutoff, honey. That's it.
Must have been delinquent 7 months prior to June 30th, 2021. For the restitution, this is how you are qualified for restitution. You must have entered a repayment on direct federal programs before January 2015. You must have at least one loan that was eligible for the income-driven repayment plan before October 2009 and January 2017. But Navient steered them into forbearance. So, for example, if you knew that your loan could have gone into a repayment plan, but they put you into forbearance instead, then you qualify for restitution. What?
This is almost like predatory loaning.
Yeah.
Which is what happens when people like go and get a car loan for a 2008 Chevy Malibu, and now their loan, you know, and people whatever reasoning, but there should be no reason why anybody should be sitting across from a table and engaging another person in a contractual agreement of something that doesn't even make sense, because as soon as you walk off you're paying a car note for a car, you're upside down on your car. So you're providing options for people to never realistically be able to pay it back.
Exactly. And you know what? It sucks because I feel like whoever was the attorneys over this situation, they need to go back and revisit it outside of just DeVrying them, because anybody that attended an HBCU probably has had that predatory.
Well, I just got to be exclusive to HBCU attendees, because let me tell you about this PWI student loan debt. It's not to be played with.
I'm sure it is, but girl, have you ever seen a financial aid office at an HBCU campus?
I've heard horrible stories. I'm not shading the HBCU. I'm gonna let
I don't. I know. We see each other.
Right.
We see each other. But let me tell you about the HBC. I don't even have time, listeners. You know what it's like to go to that financial aid office and not be cleared until after Labor Day.
I'm glad I ain't never had.
You know what it's like.
Not at the Bursar's office on Sweetheart Circle at the Great Georgia Southern University.
Baby.
Anyway, up next on the political update, we've got an update for you on the decision in the Senate regarding voter rights legislation. Unsurprisingly, the Senate was unable to deliver on the Freedom to Vote or the John Lewis Voting Rights Act this past week. This week, the Senate failed in a 48-52 draw to change the filibuster rules, which would have been required to get what we need to be passed. So, eyes are on next week. We've got another deadline pushed to Wednesday. At this point, if it has not been clear before, pay very close attention as to who is so adamant on blocking these small things.
Mr. Mitch.
Also want to make mention, apparently Americans and blacks
are different.
We're not the same thing.
We knew that.
I really beg to differ, but the comments that were made this week just really, again, gives a very candescently clear picture about how we are valued and how important it is to silence our voices and our abilities to be stakeholders of our own future.
All of this because we had our first Black president. Can you believe it?
It kind of, it does.
Can you believe it? I feel like racism was slick put to bed.
Never. Definitely
it wasn't.
Not.
It wasn't.
No.
But
not
think
even
about
put to
it.
bed.
Think about it though. Before you experience what you experienced in college, okay? Because that was directly after he won. If you want to keep it a buck, think about our experience growing up. We grew up.
We grew up in the most predominant community for African Americans in the nation. We were completely sheltered. Everything that was happening in college and that is happening right now has been happening. From 2008 until right now, there's been a complete surge in like the presence of social media, thus providing that physical video evidence. The same stuff happened right before Rodney King happened because people weren't. I mean, even in the civil rights movement, the inclusion of television. Although the images were only in black and white, before it was just radio and newspapers, and those things took time. So seeing the images, then bringing the images to color, now serving the images so easily for you to see, shit been going on.
I believe that, but I also feel like, to your point, the shelteredness, like
that's big.
That plays a huge part in it, but I still feel like racism wasn't as prevalent while we were growing up because of the things that you mentioned. But still,
we weren't seeing.
We didn't experience what we read about, what we were taught about.
Yeah.
Now it's a crying shame now that my child is learning about these things in school now that I'm a big grown up, and it's going on today.
Yes.
That's the most scary thing about it. And I have to talk to my kids because they are boys, and now they're learning about Martin Luther King. They're learning about racism. They're learning about all these things. And it's crazy because these things are still happening today.
Right. I think it's really important, and I know we have to tie it, but while we're teaching, first off, keep your eyes on what's happening in legislation because the critical race theory conversation is up for topic for Georgia as well. But while we're making sure that we arm our children and our students, especially our young black children, with like the facts of the history of all of the horrible things that's been done, like we have to be very mindful so that they won't have this mindset that says we've always been oppressed, because that's not necessarily the case. There's duality in it. So while we talk about the instances in which this society has tried to limit us, let it be overfilled with all of the instances in which we, our people, our ancestors have been able to overcome, to triumph, to make so much change. We got to make sure that we keep the narrative. Hey, don't forget, these motherfuckers are not for you, and this is the reason why. But also don't forget, your capability expands beyond what they could even imagine, and they know that too.
Right. I agree. I definitely agree. I couldn't have agreed more.
Yeah.